can I make today? Oh, that's right, my Italian cousin's coming up from the south. I'm gonna make gnocchis. We're gonna make gnocchis, homemade ricotta cheese gnocchis. We're not gonna do the typical potato like I grew up with. My trusty little bowl that I've used for 30, 40 years, my little 2-cup measure. It's not a whole lot of ingredients, but it's delicious. And so what we're gonna put in is, we got ricotta cheese, my homemade pesto, and 1 egg. That's all it takes. And then we're gonna go to the pantry and we're gonna take out some whole wheat flour and some white unbleached bread flour. We want to try to make these as wholesome and healthy as possible, so I'm using the whole wheat, and then it'll be a little bit more satisfying and full flavored once it's mixed with our homemade sauce. So we are going to, first of all, put our 1 egg into our bowl, and this homemade pesto I made, and what I did is I made fresh, let's take our spoon out, I had fresh basil, and what I did, I'm going to put this whole thing in here. These are going to be pesto, basil pesto, of course, could be parsley, but I did basil, gnocchis, and we're just going to whip that together with our egg, and we've got a pound of ricotta cheese. These are kind of hard to open. You gotta saw around that edge to get that off. And we're gonna just put the 2 cups of ricotta cheese. You could use the skim. I prefer to just use the whole. It's not that much more grams of fat. Okay. And we're going to just incorporate the ricotta cheese with the egg and the pesto. That smells good. Now in this pesto, I chose not to put the Parmesan cheese. In my pesto is just the fresh basil, pine nuts, and a little bit of slivered almonds because I didn't have enough pine nuts, so I put a little slivered almonds, and then of course the olive oil, nice extra virgin olive oil. Okay, there we go. Now to this we're going to add our flours. This is not rocket science. This is not how I grew up. If my mother saw me making this, she'd probably have a cow, because we spent the whole day. Thursdays was gnocchi day growing up in our Italian home. And over here is my little, whoops. So we spent the whole day, like I said, boiling potatoes and putting it in ricers, and you know, it was a real chore. But what I'm doing is I'm taking shortcuts. I can get these done from beginning to eat in 30 minutes or less. And you see, so far I've got these already almost made. I am adding a cup of the white flour and a cup of our whole wheat flour. And we're going to just slowly add this. Now you can, I don't usually put salt, but I think I'm going to add a little bit of salt. Like I said, I did not put salt. I didn't put the Parmesan cheese in the basil. And of course, when we cook the gnocchis, we are going to put salt in the water. So again, I can probably move over to this counter over here. Got it more cleared off. Bring our bag of flour, because we're going to use a little bit of that on the counter when we roll them out and cut them. So, could have probably got my larger bowl, but I kind of am spoiled with this. Like I say, this is as old as my marriage, which is going on 39 years in a couple weeks. We're going to have our anniversary. And you notice you don't have to put any leavening in here. It's the egg that just does the trick. And I'm going to be making these today to freeze them because my cousin's not coming in for another week. And I thought it might be fun to just kind of make them with her, but the more I thought about the time element, even though it's 30 minutes, I wanted to spend 30 more minutes just talking with my cousin. I thought it'd be kind of nice to spend as much time. She's only going to be here for a week. And you know, a week is not that long when you're family. And coming from Atlanta up north, we got to spend all the time we can together. So this is just about ready. Now I do need to take my ring off. Put it here on the windowsill. And I think we're going to do the rest of this with our hands. Yep. Oh, that smells so good. That basil is so fresh. Oh, it's too bad these cameras don't have a smell sensor on them where you could really smell. How nice it smells. All right, I guess that's pretty much incorporated. I'm just going to dump it on here. Get rid of our bowl, and you see I've still got just about the rest of the 2 cups, and that is about usually all that I ever have to use for this recipe. It is so simple. And it's nice to have a recipe that has such few ingredients. And you just want to kind of knead it all in together carefully. It's not like you're kneading bread dough. You just want to incorporate everything, because then we're going to let it rest a little bit. And then we're going to roll them out into our little gnocchis. There. Wow, that smells so good. Did I say there was garlic in my pesto? I smell it. I forgot to tell you that. Okay, good enough. And there you go. We have a cup of whole wheat flour, cup of unbleached flour. We've got 2 cups of ricotta cheese. We've got this container, which I probably should measure. That's probably at least a 1/4 cup, a little more, of our pesto basil without the Parmesan cheese. And the whole wheat flour and the unbleached flour. And I did add a little salt. That is optional. I don't always put salt because when you cook your pasta, then you want to put your salt in the water. So I put a little bit just for fun. Okay, so now we're going to just let that sit there for a minute. And I've got my 2 trusty cookie sheets here. We'll put one here, right resting on my sink. And then what I do, nothing fancy, it's not rocket science, just take any old knife, cut a chunk off, put enough flour down, and then what I do is just I roll them. And again, if my mother would see me do this, she'd say, no, you're being too hard on them. You know what? I get the job done, they taste wonderful. And then we just go, again, nothing to it. And you can make them as small or as big as you want. I kind of flour them extra, let them run through the hands. Throw them on my cookie sheet because you want them floured. Again, just chunks. They don't have to be in any shape. And just make your logs. Or as my grandkids said, your snakes. You can make a nice big snake. As for all my 15 grandchildren, here's your snake. And there it fell apart, but that's no big deal. We just roll it. The thickness is really totally up to you. You can do them like a finger's thickness if you'd like. If you have a big fat finger and you prefer them fat, that's okay. If you like them skinny, you can. The skinnier they are, though, they'll be more like a Spätzle, which is your German noodle. The Italians are usually, the gnocchi is usually about this thick. You can make them small, and you know, other people have made them totally different than me. A lot more work, but you know what? I'm all about taste, flavor. Oops, and we dropped one. We'll leave that one on the floor. And less work. That's my motto. Because today, a family is so busy. The mother is going, trying to keep everybody in order, putting on a good meal. You can just do this on the weekend if you want. And then what I like to do is once these are frozen, you want to make sure they're kind of not touching each other. And then You stick them right in the freezer. It's called flash freeze. And then you can put them in a bag. Nice airtight baggie or a container. Keep them in the freezer. Take them out however many you want. You can use them with pasta, as I'm going to when my cousin comes up next week. Or you can use the gnocchi with act as like it was a schnitzel, and you could make it as a dinner with some green beans. My family likes that. I used to make when they were growing up. I would just take green beans frozen and we'd make a meal out of it. A couple of them here. I just set the last two to go, and as you can see, we've got our one large cookie sheet all filled, and I've been filling the second one. And like I said earlier, I'm making these to freeze, and that's why they're going from my counter, from the pans. They're going to go straight into the freezer, and then when I'm ready for them, I'm going to have a pot of boiling water, and you just put them right in the boiling water. Now, if I was making these for right now, I would already have my pot, my big pot. You want a nice big pot of water boiling, and then I could just dump these right in the hot water, and you've got dinner in less than a half an hour. By the time you begin and sit down, you are eating in a half an hour's time. This is what a pound of ricotta cheese and 2 cups of flour made. I don't exactly know pound-wise how much it is, but I will probably, I'll probably weigh it up, and it's going to be at least over 2 pounds because they are heavy. And I was going to say one more thing earlier too. You might want to take your knife when you're cutting and just kind of stick it in your flour, and as you're cutting your gnocchis, just to kind of help them fall off easily, because you don't want a ton of flour on here, because once these go in the boiling water, you don't want them too floury, and you put them in the water and you just take them out as soon as they come to the top. So this was homemade gnocchi lesson number 1. This was one of many ways to do it. I chose to use the basil pesto with no Parmesan cheese, and there's many other ways we can do it. I've done it with yams. We might do that next time. But for now, have a great meal.